Have you ever felt totally overwhelmed trying to bridge the gap between a child's home language and English fluency without causing a ton of anxiety? Well, you are exactly where you need to be. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're building a true masterclass on teaching English to young learners. We're going to blend joyful, heart-centered methods with the hard, empirical science of reading to build absolute, total fluency.
We'll be using a building metaphor to map out the whole journey today. Let's look at the agenda. 1. Joy first, language second. 2. The bilingual superpower. 3. Mastering the 44 sounds. 4. The 1,000-word goal. And 5. Building a home classroom.
All right, let's dive right into Section 1. Joy first, language second. The foundation of safety.
So to begin laying our foundation, we literally have to establish a sense of safety and joy right out of the gate. Why? Because brain science actually shows us that language acquisition always follows a sense of belonging. So we've got a golden rule here. Before a single worksheet or flashcard, there must be a song. And hey, this isn't just some soft, feel-good idea. Music activates multiple areas of the brain all at once. It lowers what the famous linguist Krashen calls the affective filter. Think of that as the emotional anxiety barrier that just completely blocks learning whenever a kid feels pressured or embarrassed. We've got to get that filter down. Singing a bilingual tune like the Amigos song is honestly the perfect way to lower that filter. Let's break down exactly why this works so well. First off, it puts bilingual vocabulary into context. Kids are learning what words mean naturally as they sing them. Second, it builds phonemic awareness. Those natural rhymes and drawn-out syllables, they help kids hear the actual distinct sounds of English. Third, it creates this immediate sense of community and belonging. It lets every single child in that circle know, hey, you are a valued part of this group no matter what their English level is. Plus, the rhythm acts as a really powerful memory scaffold, giving the brain a predictable pattern to hang those new words onto. And finally, when you pair that song with movement and gesture, clapping or waving, you are locking those words straight into the body's muscle memory.
Moving on to Section 2. The bilingual superpower. Scaffolding for success.
Okay, so honoring a child's home language is actually their absolute greatest cognitive asset. It acts as the crucial scaffolding for this whole building process we're talking about. To understand this scaffolding, we really need to look at two specific types of language. Have you ever noticed how fast kids learn to ask for a snack or find the bathroom in a completely new language? That is BICS, or Basic Interpersonal Communicative Skills. It's the everyday survival conversational language. Kids pick this stuff up super quickly, usually within just 1 to 2 years, simply through songs, games, and daily routines.
But then, on the other hand, we have CALP, Cognitive Academic Language Proficiency. This is that deeper, much more complex academic language you actually need for real school success, and it takes about 5 to 7 years to fully develop. But here is the truly fascinating part. Research shows that these complex academic concepts actually transfer perfectly from the home language directly into English. So, a child who already understands the scientific concept of condensation in Spanish, they only need to learn the new English label. They don't have to learn the entire complex concept from scratch. How cool is that? Now, when we look at the data comparing English-only immersion with dual-language immersion, it's pretty eye-opening. Forcing English-only suppression actively raises that affective filter we talked about earlier, and it severely harms learning. Conversely, dual-language immersion honors the home language, preserves the child's cognitive flexibility, and significantly accelerates their English acquisition. It turns out the home language isn't competing with English at all. It's literally the scaffolding that supports it.
All right, Section 3, Mastering the 44 Sounds. Framing the house.
Now we're transitioning into the strict mechanics of our reading boot camp to frame our house, and we're focusing heavily on speech sounds. The magic number you need to know here is 44. Get this, even though we only have 26 letters in the English alphabet, there are exactly 44 phonemes or individual sounds. We're talking 19 distinct vowel sounds and 25 consonant sounds. Mastering these 44 unique sounds is the absolute framing foundation of all reading instruction.
Which brings us to the golden rule of reading instruction. Phonemic awareness must come before written phonics. I'll say it again, phonemic awareness comes first. Before kids ever memorize spelling rules or stare at letter flashcards, they absolutely must be able to hear, identify, and manipulate these sounds orally. Think about it. If a child cannot hear the 3 distinct sounds in the word cat, simply showing them the written letters, C-A-T, is just not going to bridge the gap.
So how do we teach these phonemes effectively?
educators use some highly specific, really engaging strategies. First, they explicitly model precise mouth, lip, and tongue positions. They also teach students to check for voicing and airflow. This is like holding a hand up to your throat to feel your vocal cords vibrate for a Z sound, but noticing they don't vibrate for an S sound. They also use what we call minimal pairs. This just means comparing two words that vary by only a single sound, like pat and bat, which trains the brain to distinguish those minor differences. To really lock all this in, they use total physical response, or TPR. That means students are actively moving their bodies while speaking. And finally, kids practice making these sounds right in front of mirrors, which gives them immediate visual feedback on their mouth shape.
On to Section 4, the 1,000-word goal. Laying the bricks.
With our frame up, we're ready to lay the bricks of our house, using a highly strategic, almost mathematical approach to teaching vocabulary. Your absolute foundation begins with a very specific number, 107. These are the first 107 glue words based on high-frequency sight word lists. We're talking about basic pronouns, verbs, and connectors, words like I, you, is, and. Now, really think about this. Just 107 words make up over 50% of all written English. They are literally the essential skeleton of the language.
And from there, we build toward our ultimate goal, which is known as the power law of vocabulary. 1,000 core words. This is a total game changer. Mastering just 1,000 core words unlocks a massive 90% of all everyday text. Let that sink in. Once a child hits this milestone, they can understand a teacher's classroom instructions, they can read a menu at a restaurant, and they can grasp the core of nearly any everyday storybook you hand them.
A child will naturally progress toward that goal over a pretty clear timeline. Usually at around 3 to 6 months of exposure, they start using basic sentences built from those first 107 glue words. By 6 to 12 months, they've expanded up to 300 words. At 1 to 2 years, they hit 500 words, and finally, they reach that independent reading and fluent everyday conversation stage once they hit that 1,000-word milestone, which typically happens around the 2 to 3 year mark.
And finally, Section 5, building a home classroom, the toolbox.
Let's finally put the roof on our house by looking at a really practical, high-impact toolbox for implementing all these methods yourself. Visualize your own kitchen, your living room, or your classroom. One of the absolute best things you can do immediately is label everything in that space in both languages. A door gets a label that says door/puerta. A table gets table/mesa. This creates a Montessori-inspired, prepared environment. The beauty of this is passive absorption. The child simply exists in the space and absorbs the vocabulary completely naturally with zero pressure to perform.
Another amazing tool for your toolbox is the yes/no game, which brilliantly checks a child's comprehension without causing any anxiety at all. Why does it work? Because there are only 2 possible answers, so a simple thumbs up or thumbs down works perfectly. You start at the beginner level with simple object identification, asking something like, is this an apple? Then you progress to intermediate conceptual questions like, is today Monday? And eventually you move to advanced reading comprehension and logic, asking fun things like, can fish fly?
And please, whatever you do, never underestimate the absolute magic of puppets in language learning. Using a monolingual puppet is a profound tool. Think about it. If you have a child teach English to a puppet that only speaks Spanish, you are completely reversing the power dynamic. The child suddenly becomes the expert, which lowers the social stakes entirely. You can also use puppet retelling, where the child uses the puppet to recall and summarize a story they just heard. There's also the question-asker technique, where the puppet, not the adult, asks the child questions, which results in a much lower pressure response. And finally, reader's theater. This is where kids read scripted performances through their puppets, allowing the puppet to absorb all the stage fright for them. It's brilliant.
Giving a child the cognitive gift of a second language isn't about stressful remediation, it's an extraordinary advantage, and it starts with a single joyful step. We have laid the foundation, scaffolded the concepts, framed the sounds, laid the vocabulary bricks, and put a solid roof on our bilingual house today. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought to kick off your own building process. What will your first label be? And what song are you going to sing today?